a lot of people thrive on the creation of problems. Um, the the classic institution that survives from problems is government. Government is probably the one single organization that has never ever solved anything ever in its history. Um, Government exists through expansion. It's like the old empire philosophy. If your empire is not growing, it's dying, and the government has a similar idea that if it's not growing, it's dying. And any time that it can create a problem, that's good because it means more work for more people, and they can create more departments and more jobs and have more administrators, and they can create more papers, and they have more meetings with lawyers, and there's more work in the court system. Yeah, and multiculturalism is a lie. It doesn't work, right? It's like getting people, for example, if you have five people who like different kinds of music, yeah, one likes rock, and one likes metal, and one likes pop, and one likes rap, and one likes classical, and you get them to live together, that won't work, right? That it won't work. They will fight with each other. They'll hate each other. There'll be conflicts. There'll be problems. And so that's multiculturalism. People, culture by definition. Now this is the great language trick, right? Culture by definition is mono. The cult is mono. It's always mono. So multiculturalism can't exist. It can't exist. It's oxymoronic. It's against itself. It's an impossibility. And there's that's it's not the only example of that, but it's like when you hear the term single parent family. Well, family requires two parents. So
Hmm.
you can't have a single parent family. It's impossible.
Mhm.
And these terms are used to confuse people, like a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy is a fact, and a theory is the opposite of a fact. So the actual term conspiracy theories, and it's impossible. The actual term is impossible. You can't have such a thing.
Mhm.
So if you can get people to use language um, that has no sense, then you can get them to do almost anything that you want them to do.
Mhm.
So the idea the idea of multiculturalism has been a massive failure. I lived in London for 5 years, and everyone knows you've got your Chinese area, Chinatown. You've got your Greek and Turkish area. You've got your Afro-Caribbean area. You've got where your Nigerians live. You've got where your Irish live. You've got where your Londoners live. And these areas don't mix. And if you walk down the wrong street at the wrong time, you get killed. That's what happens. It's brutal. Yeah, this is our street, and you're white, and we're another color. So yeah, so you don't speak our language or whatever, which is crazy because my experience in London was you can walk into any shop and buy anything. They're happy to take your money, but they don't want to see your face. Like it's crazy. They don't want me on their street, but they're happy to take my money in their shop. Yeah, that's just so mad. So and so it doesn't work. People just don't mix together in that kind of way. Um, that's why these things exist. The different religions exist because people are different and they can't live together. Different societies exist. Different countries exist because people are different and can't live together. So the idea that Christians and Muslims could live side by side happily is mad, and it, it's not a solution to anything at all. The the crazy thing is the problem is not a Muslim problem. I think the problem is the problem of atheists who seem to believe that atheism is not a belief because even no belief is a belief. You can't escape it. Um, so it's atheists who believe that because they don't believe it, nobody should believe. And so it's okay because the atheist thinks it's okay to live with other people, so that it's okay for everybody, and it's completely wrong. It just doesn't work at all, and the atheists just end up worshiping government instead of God. And when you worship people as God, you end up with hell because people make mistakes. They're only human, and so it's not going to work. It's not going to work having the Christians and the Muslims together. So what next? Conflict and problems. Who benefits? Government. The people are running scared. They're scared to go out. They're scared to go places. They're scared to do things. The media won't report on it because media is the government. I don't care what anybody says. The media is the government. It's just an arm of government. That's all it is. Your television channels are just an arm of government. Your radio is just an arm of government. Your newspapers and your magazines are just an arm of government. People are paid to write specific stories with specific agendas and forget the fact that it's free press. There is no such thing as the free press. That's a joke, right? That's played on society. I'm 44 years old. I've never seen the free press ever. There's always an agenda. There's always a perspective. People are paid for a reason. They're paid to do a job. Yeah. Everyone is bought and sold. We're all soldiers of a different type, of a different kind. And so what to do next? There will be more crime, so you'll need more police. Oh yeah, so there'll be more police, so you'll have more police, and then there won't be enough police, so you'll get the army to join the police, and then you'll have people with guns on the streets, and they'll be walking around, and before you know it, it'll be 1984 with a military-style sort of agenda where people can only go to certain areas and spend time in certain areas, and they can't leave their area or their district because it'll be too dangerous for them, and they can't go places where they don't know, and they'll be scared to travel alone, and they won't be able to use public transport or trains or any of the freedoms that have been created by Western cultures. And I'll add to that one other problem that nobody wants to talk about, which is the IQ problem. It's the intelligence problem. Different cultures have different intelligences. Now, people will say that oh, yeah, well, everyone is different everywhere, but no. Some cultures are better than other cultures. Better exists, right? Some people are better than other people. Better exists. We have to deal with it and live with it. So some cultures are more intellectual and they understand the benefits of having less criminal activity. And some cultures are less intellectual and don't understand the benefits of having less criminal activity. They can't defer gratitude. They just take what they need now because they need it. They don't see the long-term benefit of the investment over a long period of time. And you can't bring these two kind of cultures together because the IQ is different. And there are enough studies recently to show that the IQ average in Western countries is now falling. That it reached a peak in the late 1970s, early 1980s. But after that point, it started to go down. British IQ on average has dropped 20 points since 1980. 20 points. So in 30 years, it's dropped 20 points. Now, imagine teaching students who have 100 IQ or teaching students who have 70 IQ. Right, that's two different planets, right? It's two different worlds. And so what's happening is it's not just cultures thrown together, it's IQ thrown together. And people have this argument, well, the lower IQ will raise itself up. It doesn't happen. It could, because as far as we know throughout history, it takes thousands of years to grow IQ. Thousands of years. It can't be done in one generation or two generations. It maybe takes 2,000 to 5,000 years to grow IQ. And so we've been sold this lie that they will integrate. But low IQ populations don't integrate into high IQ cultures. Now, I'm not saying we're high IQ cultures and we're the best. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you look at what has happened throughout history, it it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and it leads to chaos. It leads to violence. It leads to misunderstanding. Um, there's there's no solution, and who suffers are the middle and the lower classes because they get infiltrated by these low IQ groups. And when you breed with low IQ people, you produce low IQ children, and it goes downhill from there. So it's a it's a slightly frightening future because what you want is you want immigration, but you want the qualified intellectual university graduates from the other countries coming in to bring in their intellect. You don't want the low IQ, haven't studied, haven't gone to school, um, people who are not going to benefit the economy in the long term. So what we have now is stagnation. We have Western stagnation of culture. And as we all know, things either go forward or go backwards. They very rarely stay the same. So you slow down, progress slows down to a point, and then it goes backwards very quickly. And you get things like what happened in Paris very recently. Um, history disappears very quickly. Gone like this. 800 years of history gone in an instant. And that's how quickly we can lose everything. What it takes 100 generations to build, you can lose in one generation if you're not careful. And so Germany and Britain as well and France, we all have to be very careful because it's not clear that all of these changes are going to be positive at all. And and certain groups of people benefit from chaos and disorder and confusion. These are generally the lower intellectual groups that benefit from it, and they want more of it. It's not good, and I have my own personal opinion about it, which I think I mentioned before, which is that we want mechanics to make decisions about our cars, we want doctors to make decisions about our operations, and we want politicians to make decisions about our politics. We can't leave it to the people because now you've got 1 million immigrants, your 1 million immigrants are going to vote, and they're going to vote for more of the same that the German people don't like. That's not a good thing. England has 30, just under 40 mayors. Okay, so like 40 districts with 40 mayors in England. It's just under 40. I'm not sure of the exact number. I have to check it. 13 are Muslim. 13 are Muslim. Now, they might be great people. I don't know them. They might be great people. That's okay. I'm not saying good or bad, but what I am saying is they will promote the Muslim traditions. So regions that had people who promoted Christian traditions, well, that's gone. Because there were Christians and then there were atheists and now there's Muslims. And that's going to grow because the Muslims are culturally focused. Muslim marries Muslim, has Muslim kids, goes to Muslim school, follows Muslim doctrine, reads Muslim books, watches Muslim TV, engages in Muslim culture and sports and activities and whatever, right? That's going to grow. They're going to have kids. They're going to have lots of kids because atheists don't want to have kids because they don't see the point, because Why? Because they don't see the point, right? Where the Muslims are like, pop, 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 here's hundreds of babies, and within 2 generations you have, um, the demographics are that Christianity is going to go, and that Muslims going to go, and and in 20 years' time, the Muslim religion will be the dominant religion. The extreme left-wing political group married the Muslim, the Muslim religion. The extreme left-wing political leaders got together with the Muslim leaders and decided to destroy the West. And it's happening right now. Well, I don't think of people as much as I think of the ideology, which is let's be open, everything is okay. You mentioned it before, political correctness, right? Now, political correctness is the assassination of free speech.
Yeah, that's
Because,
true.
because as you pointed out, you can't say what you think, and when you can't say what you think, it's obviously a very bad situation to be in. Because you either have emotional arguments or you have intellectual arguments. Now, both can bring advantages and positive results. However, when we're looking at culture, we fundamentally need to have, I would say, society is an abstract concept. So that needs to have facts. Your family can work on emotional principles, but you can't run a culture that way, right? You can't do that. You've got to have the logic of information, which brings a kind of enlightenment to culture, and it society swings from left to right, and I don't. I don't know I don't know what the right way is, but I know that I was brought up in a way where I learned that everything was okay. Be what you want, do what you want. It's free society, free world, whatever. Now that I'm a bit older, I look back on that and I think that was wrong. I think you need a set of rules. Now, it doesn't mean that the rules are always fixed exactly the same, because you can take them and you can change them. You can find better rules, but you need a set of rules. Think of life as a game. Games have rules. Now, you can change the rules and make the game better, okay? But you need a set of rules just to keep things moving. Think of life like a computer game. It's got levels, and stay within the boundaries and borders of the game. But so I think that this idea of everything being open has led to a lie. And the lie is you can do what you want, you can be what you want. No responsibilities. It's a terrible society to live in, where there's no responsibilities. Everything good we have in our life comes from the fact that we understand responsibility. Everything good. And when you can fail miserably in your life and not have any bad consequences, that's really terrible for society. There's no motivation to do anything.
Hmm.
Like if I can make a big mistake and I know that somebody else is going to clean up my mess, then I'm not going to develop any responsibility. And my experience is that Western Christian culture developed responsibilities. Didn't do it very well, and religion took over from Christianity, and I consider myself Christian, but not in the modern sense of I go to church, because I don't think God is in a church. Not nice people are in a church. It's a good place to go, meet people and share information and have an experience, but God's not in a church. Not in my world, anyway. So I think that we're lucky to have some of the freedoms that we have: the preservation of stories, history, the Bible, morality. Um, I think that the Christian tradition has preserved a lot of that. One of the fundamentally most important pieces of teaching is to love other people. Yeah, it's a Christian teaching to love other people. Um, and our job in the modern world is to evolve that idea to another level. To take what's good and make it better. That's the job of intelligent people, to take what exists as good and make it better. And and the left politically has taken freedom and turned it into a prison because they say that freedom means you can do whatever it is you want to do without limits. When freedom is really the development of human responsibility. And until we understand that, we're not going to get anywhere. And the the right wing, the conservative, and conservative is traditional values, is now the preserver of free speech, which is madness, of real free speech. Because the left are like, oh, you can't say this because people will get offended, and it's like, well, that's the result of not developing responsibility. Then you're not responsible for your own emotions. You're not responsible for your own reactions. You react instead of responding. And and so once free speech was the, the cradle of the ideas of the left. But amazingly, over the last 20, 30 years, it's completely changed. And now free speech belongs to the right as a concept that needs to be preserved. It's very bizarre. And trying to explain that to young people is right. I think you can only understand it when you live it. Which means what? It means people have to make mistakes. To go out and do things, make mistakes, learn from your mistakes. So I very much fear the growth of the LGBTQ cultures, which are teaching that everything is unicorns and rainbows. I'm not sure that's a good thing. I'm not against people doing that. Do what you want to do, right? Be who you need to be. But let's all realize that everything has a price. Everything has a price. Freedom has a price. And sooner or later, we all have to pay the price. Sometimes we say in English, to pay the ferryman for the transportation to the other side. Sooner or later, we have to pay the ferryman. It's interesting because I think contradictions exist everywhere. And here's an example. I think everything is holistic, which means that love and hate are part of the same principle. They're part of the same thing. If it doesn't have an opposite, it doesn't really exist. So, and you can't have one thing without having the other side of things. So I homeschool my children because I have a fear of giving my children to the state. Yet at the same time, Christian schools like your school are doing a lot of things to preserve all the values that are good. So I don't homeschool because I don't like the other things. I homeschool because I like the concept of variety and choice in life. And I like to make my own mistakes. And so I think it's fundamental to understand that the school is at the center of something that can be absolutely fantastic or absolutely terrible, and it's down to the individuals within the school how that works and what the result is. Because you get schools that are taken over by leftists who have no religious education, a lot of sex education, and no history, and a lot of the government is great. And you get schools which are run by right-wing groups, which are that rules are good, and we need religion, and we need values, and cultural traditions are important, and there's good on both sides, but extremes are bad. And right now, it's the political conservative Christians who are in the right place to do the right thing, which is to understand tradition, history, value. In Christian schools, you're going to find people who have read the Bible, they've read the stories, they know what happens when government goes bad. First they come for you, or not. First they come for the kids. They come and they take the kids. Stories are in the Bible. They come for the children. They come and they take your children away from you, and you never see them again. Scary stories. Scary stories. Yeah. Um, the increase of taxation. Jesus was born in a stable because of taxation. I mean, what an amazing story, right? Yeah, it's so many, and just one of so many stories that are very relevant to the world that we live in today. So there's no immediate solution. People need to be aware. They need to be ready. And when you can't say what you want to say is when you need to say it. So when someone says you can't say that, then you have to say it. Just because. Just because you have to if you don't exercise free speech, you lose it. You lose it. It's terrible. Everything that you don't exercise, you lose. You don't exercise your dogs, you lose your dogs. Okay. So it's really important to exercise the freedoms that we have, because we do live, I think, in, as far as I'm aware, the greatest culture that's ever existed in history. So, so let's try to keep it that way.